Hello, my name's Caitlin Drew, and I'm sure you've all heard of the Chernobyl incident, the one that's still recognized as one of the worst nuclear power plant disasters in history. According to the World Nuclear Association, which this was updated in April of 2022, approximately a little over 500 people have died from this explosion, and up to over 600,000 people, even to this day, are still infected with radiation poisoning as a result of this explosion. This is an image from Germany, and it says, "Oh Gott, es regnet." And that translates to, "Oh God, it is raining," which refers to the radiation that continued to leak over the rest of Europe from this explosion. Many people look over the Chernobyl incident of 1986 and how it impacted the community of Ukraine. With the events of the USSR, the majority of the attention was centered on how it affected Russia. And today, I'll be trying to inform you guys all the circumstances, the facts of the disaster, while also recognizing the political climate at the time and how the government had handled Ukraine and why people still feel um, slighted by their government because of it. The Chernobyl disaster was a mass explosion that erupted from a power plant located in Pripyat, Ukraine. It's also important to note that at this time, Pripyat was part of the USSR, which was under the control of the Soviet Union. This will be incredibly relevant later when I talk about how the government handled the explosion. This explosion caused mass amounts of radiation to be released into surrounding areas. Um, According to the International Energy Agency, it states that on April 26th of 1986, the number 4 RBMK reactor at the nuclear plant in Chernobyl, Ukraine, which is the name of the plant itself was located in Pripyat, which was a town directly outside. Um, the It went out of control during a test, and this reactor was built. It's completely different from all other nuclear reactors in the country, and they were trying to develop not new explosions, but develop new technologies regarding nuclear energy. The test was out of control. It went out of control at low power, leading to the explosion and fire. It demolished the entire building and released like large amounts of radiation into the air. The slow spread of nuclear radiation, it was all over the forestry, surrounding areas, majority of the Soviet Union and what people would be considering Eastern Europe today. Officials had closed off within 18 miles of the plant. Nobody was allowed to enter. It was unlivable due to the radiation poisoning levels. Only people with official business at the plant and dealing with the consequences of the accident were allowed. It was about 3,500,000 people were evacuated from the surrounding 18 miles after the explosion. About 600,000 workers were needed to control and clean up the radiation and destruction. And from the World Health Organization, it states that 200 workers died from these conditions, and another 1,000 were infected with radiation poisoning due to exposure for too long. After exposure, the health was monitored closely, especially of the workers, not so much of the citizens. At the time in Chernobyl, there was already pre-existing political tensions caused by the USSR and the Soviet Union. According to John Carlson for the Lowly Institute, the public's distrust in the Soviet Union grew after repeated events of secrecy. The Chernobyl reactor and the government's response only pushed the notion that the government's secrecy was problematic. Additionally, the government also provided poor health care for its citizens afterwards. The World Health Organization reports that about 4,000 cases of thyroid and other cancers have been reported, especially in children and young adults. And 22,000 deaths have been recorded as a result of nuclear radiation expected during the lifetime of those alive at the time of the explosion. Many Ukrainians also feel that the government didn't handle it the best way. The health of citizens themselves was not monitored as well as the health of workers. The World Health Organization states that an estimated 5 million people currently live in highly reactive areas such as Belarus, Russia, Ukraine, and other places that are contaminated with radionuclides. And about 100,000 people still live in areas that are classified as highly contagious and under strict control. And many Ukrainians, this is Ukraine today. This is Pripyat. This is Chernobyl. Many Ukrainians still feel the effects of the Chernobyl incident to this day. Lives were uprooted during evacuations and changed because of activity restrictions and food rationing changes. This caused like severe lifestyle changes, especially for those located closer to the nuclear reaction site. The United Nations reports that the life expectancy of those who were alive at the time of Chernobyl, their life expectancy is about 30% less than those who were not alive at the time of the reactor going off. The International Atomic Energy quotes that there have been at least 4,000 documented cases of thyroid cancer, which I mentioned already, but it's far than normal. The incident was deeply traumatic for Ukrainian citizens, and the healthcare system declines afterwards, especially with a mass mental health decline and a spread of poverty. Many people were uprooted from their jobs and their homes, and it was already difficult enough with the economic state of Ukraine under the control of the Soviet Union. The World Health Organization still reports that repairs on the Chernobyl reactors are failing, and social programs meant to rehabilitate those affected by Chernobyl are also failing, and that there are no plans established yet to dispose of radioactive material that has not yet been defined. That stated, today there is still the elephant foot, which is the core of the nuclear reactor. It is currently escaped from its bounds and is currently seeping through the ground, about to hit a major water source in the not the Soviet Union. They're not longer the Soviet Union. But it will screw over almost the entirety of Eastern Europe if this nuclear elephant's foot hits that water source. The Chernobyl incident of 1986 had catastrophic events on the Ukrainian community. Rapid destruction, evacuation, and radiation uprooted and destroyed the lives of thousands. As a result, the political unrest with the government is stronger, and the community is suffering with poverty and sickness that still continues to this day. Are there any questions?
I have a question. So you mentioned specifically thyroid cancer, but is it safe to assume that other forms of cancer were prevalent as a result of radiation poisoning?
Yes, of course. Radiation, especially nuclear radiation, that almost always will cause some form of tumor growth somewhere in the body. It just primarily targeted the thyroid, but there were other cases such as breast cancer, colon cancer, and I think another high report was for kidney failure. I'm not sure, kidney cancer. Either way, the kidneys were also severely affected by the nuclear radiation. And you can also say that there were like physical deformities in people and in animals because of the radiation.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
When you said something about radiation, did it mess with anybody or anything? Like, did it hospitalize anybody?
So about 600,000 people have been rotating through hospitals and trying to get care for it to this day. Um, yeah, about 600,000 people and because the healthcare system is so poor in Ukraine, it's a continuous effort to try and get your healthcare needs met regarding that situation. So yeah, about 600,000 people still struggle because of Chernobyl.
I have a question. I don't
Mhm.
remember if you say where does the people that were affected by this went to? There was like organization or like refuge where people can go or. Mm.
So majority of it, because the explosion was so unexpected and they weren't really expecting anything like that to ever happen, they didn't have a plan in place.
Oh,
So they
mhm.
just started telling people to leave and
Oh,
moving them out.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you. Good job. Yay. All right.